worshipped by devoted fans for 20 years and hailed by his peers as a genius. He's the outspoken outsider of British pop, living in self-imposed exile without a record deal. Morrissey remains what he's always been, a true original and a complete mystery.
Oscar Wilde put all his wit into his life. Morrissey, it seems to me, and I completely identify with Morrissey, has sat in a darkened room and been witty on paper.
He is one of the only people in pop who has managed to turn themselves into a virtual mythological archetype.
He's got an interesting face. He looks to have a story to tell.
So sleep and dream of love.
His eccentricity lies in his mercurial nature, in his ambiguity about his sexuality, in the strength and intellectual force of his writing.
He's so catered for those sort of lonely misfits that spent a lot of time in their bedrooms.
And there's certain feelings and ideas that he has, that he owns. He's an original of the species. There's not many of them.
He is certainly one of rock's great enigmas.
I don't think Morrissey's normal. I think he spent his entire adult life trying to be anything but normal.
I can't imagine him going in a trendy bar. I can't even imagine him walking through Notting Hill Gate.
Rumours about Morrissey abound, but no one knows the truth.
What do you think he's really like?
Nobody knows. You don't know, I don't know. I'd say his mother knows. He probably doesn't even know.
With his first major TV interview for 16 years and unprecedented access to his life on tour and at home in Los Angeles, it's time to put the record straight with an exclusive insight into what it's like being Morrissey.
At the end of the day, he lives in LA, he drives a jack, he goes to the beach. I don't think he's living in a dark room dressed in black. Very true.
The more you ignore me, the closer I get. You're wasting your time. The more you ignore me, the closer I get. You're wasting your time.
Age gives you a great sense of proportion, and you can be very hard on yourself when you're younger. But now I just think, well, everybody's absolutely mad, and I'm doing quite well.
Summer 2002, and Morrissey is on a world tour, attracting a new generation of fans.
Morrissey is the legend. He's an absolute legend. The best frontman I've ever seen, and that's above Bono, that's above Liam Gallagher, that's above Mick Jagger, everybody.
Morrissey represents everything for us. He's our god here in Athens.
He gets better and better. The new material is just amazing. And he's still an enigma. There's still something there that keeps us all interested and keeps us here.
Now 43 years old, one of the most iconic men in rock music has returned home for 2 rare London concerts. Despite no publicity, all 10,000 tickets are sold out within a few hours.
This is the Churchill suite. Silly things that you end up doing for a television camera. It's abnormal, isn't it? I mean, how many people did he send to their deaths just to make up the numbers?
When Morrissey comes to England, you fucking know about it. You know, not because he does a press conference at the airport, you know, or not because he's going down to the Met Bar. You know about it because you know about it, you know? It's as simple as that.
First night at the Royal Albert Hall, and expectations are high.
So here we are backstage, and as you can see, the tension is mounting.
even before he's on stage. I think that's amazing. Sort of, you hear those football chants, and Morrissey, Morrissey, the football chants start.
I smell assassination. I smell gunpowder.
Bells is the cue for Morrissey and the guys to walk out on.
That's the way it goes. That's one, lads. Come on, boss. Yeah, come on, boss. Let's keep them eyes up. Pay attention, look at each other. Yeah, nice one.
Do you come here? Why do you hang around?
He can come over here and do a brief tour, and it's kind of like he flexes a muscle. You know, he has the crowd going absolutely bonkers. Business as usual in Morrissey land.
People treat it like almost like a religious experience. It's crazy.
I remember.
When Morrissey reaches over the moat to touch you, you no longer feel lonely, you feel celebrated in the love of the one common sovereign, which is Morrissey.
From the very start of Morrissey's solo career, his concerts have been unique in their scenes of frenzied desperation as fans seek to pay homage in the flesh.
Flinging themselves onto the stage to catch the king's touch. You know, the king could cure in some way the scrofula of loneliness.
If you notice, it's nearly all blokes. It's not women that do it, it's men. Men are in love with him, not women.
Because these are fully formed adults and mostly male, it's inexplicable. It doesn't fit into any kind of stereotyped heterosexual fantasy.
Young heterosexual men and now older heterosexual men respond to that at a homoerotic level. I think it speaks to the homosexual component in a lot of heterosexual men.
Sandy boy.
Tell you what, mate, as well, the Moz has a good bike. There aren't many left, are there, who have that charisma, that kind of iconic status, who can handle a crowd, manhandle a crowd, and leave you just wanting a little bit more.
Happy with that?
Very happy, yes. Very, very happy. Yes. Should I be? Well, I am. Thank you.
Thank you.
The roots of the Morrissey phenomenon lie in the suburbs of Manchester, where this previously unseen home movie film was shot in the 1960s. It's the only existing footage of his Irish Catholic family with the young Morrissey.
I was named after an American actor called Steve Cochran, whom you've never heard of.
I know what you're trying to prove, but knock it off. It won't work. You're stuck with me, baby. And you know it.
I never liked the name Stephen, so I dropped it as soon as I could.
I would automatically call somebody by their first name, but if they only have one name, well, I would tend not to call anybody anything at all. I found I couldn't say Morrissey, this, such and such. I just wouldn't say his name.
My parents were worried about me, certainly when I became so deeply interested in music and people like the New York Dolls, who, at the time, were very peculiar indeed. They dressed the way they wanted to dress, which was slightly transgender, shall we say, and I was hooked for life.
Morrissey was lurking around the breakfast rooms the morning after our shows and grabbing little bits of the bread rolls that we hadn't finished, and he would take them home and enshrine them in some sort of way.
This song ain't big enough for the both of us. And tell me who's gonna leave.
I first met Morrissey in 1976. I think our experience was of just absolutely no confidence in ourselves. Morrissey was totally unemployable. So a lot of the time we'd be just walking and walking and walking. And we'd look in through people's windows, and one of Morrissey's questions more than mine is, but are they really happy?
He once said that the Smiths only happened because he'd walked home in the rain once too often.
The Smiths was an incredibly personal thing to me. It was like launching your own diary to music.
They've got this daffodil-throwing singer who has big ideas in his head, and his lyrics are going to change the way we see the world.
A recent poll voted the Smiths the most influential British band of all time. Morrissey's songwriting partner was guitarist Johnny Marr.
I would go out tonight, but I haven't got a stitch to wear.
It was a magical chemistry. I always heard great sadness in his, in these rolling chords, and great beauty.
I'd like to drop my trousers to the world. I am a man of means, of slender means. Each household appliance is like a new science in my town.
You couldn't really imagine them in the same classroom being friends. You could really imagine Marr being the guy that everyone wanted to be, and Morrissey being the slightly odd boy in the corner, who some people really got, but most people just left well alone.
But what really set Morrissey apart was he chose to be alone. The first openly celibate rock star.
It was all added to the mystery, I mean, how great is that? Somebody who's like, I refuse to fuck. You know what I mean? That's just like, my God, you're so cool, Could never refuse to fuck, really. But I have,
I think that was the problem with the C word, because the celibate word, because they don't consider for a moment that you'd rather not be, but you just are. I was never a sexual person, never.
He was asked, are you a virgin? And he said yes, in quite a profound sense, or something like that. It was such a very Morrissey thing to say.
The unusual thing was, I said it and I admitted it, and it happens to millions of people, and they wouldn't dare say it or admit it because they'd feel like a complete idiot. I don't sob about it, but it wasn't easy, and it's over now.
I think Morrissey would still say celibacy is a great idea for nuns and priests. I'm not sure whether he would say that it was a good idea for him anymore.
In 1987, at the peak of their powers, the Smiths split up when Johnny Marr quit.
One night we had a conversation about it, and he was saying, I think it's about time and I've had enough, and I was saying, well, yes, I understand, but I didn't really mean it. I didn't really think that he'd completely pull the plug.
I think the Smiths was the only group whose falling apart really affected me personally. I was very sad.
But the end would be drawn out and messy. In 1996, the Smiths drummer, Mike Joyce, sued Morrissey and Marr at the High Court for an increased share of the band's earnings. The judge found in Joyce's favour.
It was a terrible miscarriage of justice. So it's been really shocking, and I wish the very, very worst for Joyce for the rest of his life.
Beware, I bear more grudges than lonely high court judges. When you sleep, I will creep into your thoughts like a bad debt that you can't pay. Take the easy way and give in.
I absolutely despise airports and air travel. That really scares me to death because it's not safe. You could die. I hate the dictatorial way that you're told to pick this up, get your bag. No, you can't. Yes, you can. Stand here, join the queue, leave the queue. It seems as if as soon as you enter an airport, you're absolutely nothing. You're just this great big blob of flesh.
It's Morrissey's first visit to Australia for 11 years, and one fan is more pleased to see him than most. She won a competition to meet him back in 1992, and today she finally gets her chance.
Nice to meet you.
You must be feeling so tired after this tour.
I'm glad one person realises that. Thank you for waiting all this time. Bound to be disappointed.
Thank you so much for your time and everything you've done. You've made me and so many people so happy.
I didn't mean to.
Every night it's really a bit like starting and finishing a play. It's like stepping out and doing Hamlet or Macbeth. There's a lot of mental preparation.
Am I going to see you get changed?
Only in your dreams.
But you have to, at least from a distance, look as if you know what you're doing. And I can manage that.
He has a sense of stage in that he'll arrive, you know, he doesn't just slink on.
Sydney!
He knows about the drama and the opera of performance.
But Jesus made me so, Jesus saved me from pity, sympathy, and people discussing me.
He is abandoned in a way that one wouldn't imagine.
That's been done.
That's what is fascinating to watch, is this person who goes from being quite a reserved person to somebody who will strip down to the waist, flagellate himself on stage.
It's always the quiet ones, isn't it? You know, you've got to watch out for them. I think he's a right dirty bastard, you know.
The lights were out. Could you even dare to look the sheriff full on the mouth or anywhere now?
Here is somebody who is able to encapsulate a lot of very deep thought, gloss it with irony, and then repackage it with emotion.
I've been stabbed in the back so many, many times. I don't have any skin, but that's just the way it goes.
Whatever you put down in a lyric to define your love or hate for anyone, he'll do it one better. Because he's the best lyricist I've ever read.
To all of my friends, I don't have too many, just some raincoated lovers, puny brothers.
The media have generally always referred to me as being miserable and morose and the Pope of Mope and things like that.
That's what I don't get. I don't get the miserable thing at all. I find them very funny.
Girlfriend in a coma, I know, it's serious.
Girlfriend in a coma, when I heard it, I nearly crashed my car and ended up in a coma. He has that gift. That is not the mark of a miserable man. They're just miserable people that don't get the humour.
I remember reading an interview with Morrissey in Smash Hit. I think he'd been asked, what is your typical day? And his typical day was basically, I stay at home and I listen to people walking up the stairs next door, and I'll go out and buy a bit of plum jam, maybe bring my mum. And then right at the end of this typical day, he said, and then it's back to bed and back to the real world.
But it wasn't all tongue-in-cheek. There was a genuinely dark side to Morrissey's reality.
During Morrissey's life, there were periods of very, very bad depression. These absolutely sort of debilitating periods where life seemed to have absolutely no point.
I suffered greatly from depression. It was very serious when I was a teenager and when I was in the Smiths. Draw parallels, if you will. So I took prescribed drugs for a long time.
When he gets really badly depressed, you'll get the call, at 1 o'clock in the morning, or the knock on the door, and he'll have his bathrobe on, and you can always tell because he's got his glasses on, the contact lenses are out, the glasses are on, and you know you're in for a heavy conversation.
Sing me to sleep, I don't want to wake up on my own anymore.
He is able to externalise internalised rage, a lot of anger about who he is, about where he comes from, and what's happened to him.
And he focuses that rage onto specific targets. Enemy number one, the meat industry.
Today on the news, there was a story that 27 million cooked chickens have been recalled, which is the biggest recall in US history, because they're lethal to humans. If they hadn't been recalled, it could have killed 80 million Americans.
The views of the most vocal vegetarian in pop music are typically uncompromising.
It's really on the same moral level as child abuse. It's the same thing. Animals are like children, they look to us for protection, and we should protect them. I really feel quite smug about mad cow disease and foot and mouth and so forth, and I just think, well, what do you expect? People have been saying it for years.
I don't think that in the year 2003 you can actually realise what an outrage he caused by calling an album Meat is Murder.
The amount of times people have said that it was Meat is Murder that converted them, I mean, it's astonishing. I've met many people, and that's why that song's so important.
This beautiful creature must die. This beautiful creature must die. A death for no reason. This death for no reason is murder.
I personally love a bit of bacon. And always did, and even for Morrissey, I didn't give it up.
It's not succulent, tasty or kind. It's death for no reason. This death for no reason is murder.
It's all just abuse and it's all human evil. Which is why I think the royal family are evil, because they enjoy fox hunting. These are despicable people. And Charles, above all, has no intelligence whatsoever.
I'm surprised he's not been slapped by a few people in the past, to be honest, for the things he's said, because he has been really outrageous.
Do you still follow football?
No. I mean, if they were kicking a politician around, I'd follow then. If it was Tony Blair instead of a round object, I'd be captivated.
I think he's very true to himself that way. I don't think he would censor himself, and then if people don't understand it, then fuck him. I just don't think that he could care less, to be honest.
I've never intended to be controversial, but it's very easy to be controversial in pop music because nobody ever is.
I remember him telling me, like, oh, this song, you won't like the title. I said, what is it? And he went, it's called The National Front Disco. I was like, oh my God, you're going to get us killed.
It caused the biggest uproar of his career. One music paper compiled a dossier of Morrissey's comments over the years and accused him of racism. He never responded.
They've kept on at that thing, like, well, if he doesn't defend himself, then he must be. Why fucking should he? You know, why should he? We all know for a fact he's not. Because if he was, the fucking News of the World would have uncovered it first. Forget the fucking NME.
Not everybody is absolutely stupid. Why on earth would I be racist? What would I be trying to achieve?
In 1998, Morrissey set up home in Los Angeles, leaving England behind.
It seemed that I had a better chance of being struck by lightning than I had of being accepted by the British music industry.
Morrissey is one in a long line of great English artists like P.G. Wodehouse or Noel Coward, who eventually leave because they're just not prepared to be pilloried for the very qualities that they were initially praised for.
I'm just passing through here. I'm on my way to somewhere civilized. And maybe I'll even arrive. Maybe I'll even arrive.
For the past 5 years, one of the most English of pop stars has lived in Los Angeles, just off Sunset Boulevard.
There's something so entirely fantastic about the fact that the Morrissey, whom so many people might want to associate with, you know, the brooding terrace and the moaning factory whistle, is sitting there in this very sort of exotic, kind of semi-tropical landscape.
Please squeeze your bodies in. So welcome to my lowly shack. This is where I live. This choreography is extra, don't forget that.
I think that the house is entirely right for him as well in terms of its history.
It was reportedly built by Clark Gable for his woman at the time, whose name was Carol Lombard, who, as you know, died tragically as soon as she was given the keys to the house, apparently.
Morrissey is living, if you want, with his family.
It's been in the hands of many people. F. Scott Fitzgerald.
His family of ghosts, almost. His informants, his inspirations.
It was also the home of John Schlesinger's other half. He lived here for a long time.
These kind of, you know, ambassadors, agents of glamour.
Since Morrissey bought the house, he's added his own distinctive touches.
Inside the house, I do feel very English, and I think you can tell that. I haven't remotely adapted.
You know with Morrissey that if he chooses to have an image of the young Bobby Moore up, it's less for the picture of Bobby Moore than it is for the little row of semis on the back of the horizon.
These are a few of my favourite things.
Little time to do everything I want to.
Today, Morrissey is about to take tea with one of his Hollywood neighbours and a member of America's showbiz aristocracy, Nancy Sinatra.
American society would consider her to be royalty. I don't see her as royalty. I mean, I just see her as Nancy, really. I think in the history books, her father is one of the most famous people in human creation. I mean, he's more famous than most royalty.
This is beautiful. I had no idea that there were such beautiful homes
There
here.
are, yes, some very nice.
Gorgeous.
Homes, very nice homes.
Gorgeous, and so are you.
Oh, I know.
Miss
Just
you.
kidding. Just kidding.
Where the hell have you been?
Well, you know, I just slip and slide.
One time I was in London. Morrissey came to my hotel to see me. The thing that sticks with me most about that is the hug that he gave me, because he's just a great hugger.
Generally, he is a good host, apart from he doesn't cook anything apart from toast. So, if you're happy with toast, you're fine.
They took me to the Queen's tattoo.
The Queen's tattoo?
Yeah, it was for her celebration.
Any good?
50 years or something.
Any
It
good
was
or just...
fabulous.
Oh,
At
was
the
it
castle.
fabulous? I didn't know the Queen had a tattoo.
Shoo, 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 Sugar Town.
This country is generally obsessed with signs. They love signs all over the place, telling you what to do, what not to do. It's not that people generally are frightened of violence and muggers or whoever. People are frightened of authority and the police because they're the people who have complete control over you and they can do anything to you and there's nothing you can do about it. That's why this is a frightened city. It's a police city.
LA is home to one of Morrissey's most surprising and most fervent fan bases, the city's Hispanic community.
It's kind of interesting that he's now kind of cultivated this Latino following. It's real hardcore bunch of fans, lots of guys in their wife beater undershirts and Morrissey tattoos and stuff.
Just about everybody I know who is Latino knows Morrissey. It's like so against what our culture stands for. It's amazing.
When you grow up Latino in Southern California, you're in a minority, and you know, sometimes you don't always feel like you belong. When you're listening to Morrissey, whose upbringing you can relate to, you belong.
I really like Mexican people. I find them so terribly nice, and they have fantastic hair and fantastic skin and usually really good teeth. Great combination.
The hysteria goes back to his first tour of the States, when Morrissey broke box office records set by the likes of Madonna and Michael Jackson.
I think people now seeing concert footage or newsreel footage would be shocked. It was absolute pandemonium.
That was such a fantastic pinnacle, and I wasn't being a whore about it. I wasn't pushing myself forward, it just seemed to happen very naturally.
I was dancing when I was 12.
New York's Madison Square Gardens was sold out in a morning, faster than the Beatles, prompting a guest appearance from another legend he would later tour with.
Is it strange to dance so slowly? Is it strange to dance so slowly?
One night he'd say, I have a great idea. Just before you're finishing your set, I appear at the back and I come on and we sing one of my songs and you just slowly fade away and your musicians fade away and mine come on, which effectively deprives people of, you know, saying goodbye to me, if you like. So I thought that was very, very cagey. So I eventually left the tour and received enormous bad press for it, and he never spoke to me again. You have to worship at the Temple of David when you become involved. He was a fascinating artist, 1970, 71, 72, but not now.
If you spend any time with Morrissey, one of the things that you find yourself doing more than anything is sitting around, pot of tea on, dissecting and annihilating people's characters. It's his favourite thing in the world to do, I think.
All I said was bring me the head of Elton John, which would be one instance when meat would not be murder, if it was on a plate.
I mean, I think however nasty Morrissey can be in print about somebody, he's even nastier out of print.
Most people have nothing to say, and most people give you the same conversation every single day.
So what's been happening? Anything adventurous in the since I saw you last?
Not really. Sorry.
No,
Sorry about that.
Sort of Hollywood gatherings of nothing like that?
Nothing at all?
No.
No, just the usual life.
It's just the same old patter, and you're none the wiser for knowing somebody for 5 years. That's why I do this music business thing, because it's communication with people without having the extreme inconvenience of actually phoning anybody up. I never make phone calls, ever. Never.
Why not?
Well, because mostly I don't really want to speak to people. And faxes are quicker.
Do you ever answer the phone?
No, I never answer the phone. No, never.
For some reason, Morrissey always communicates by fax.
Oh, zooming into the fax machine. Don't film the fax machine because it's the least expensive fax machine you can find on the American market.
5 faxes a day, maybe, would be normal for Morrissey. It's almost like text messaging with him.
They're beautifully written pieces of paper written in sort of this 3-year-old style of writing, and it kind of is so consistent with what you would expect from him.
It was really disappointing, though, that the latest letter we got from Morrissey was actually done on a computer.
It was?
It's all over.
He must have broken his hand or something.
Not for the first time, Morrissey manages to remain a mystery to his friends.
The doorbell rang one day and he was on the doorstep. And quite ridiculously early on in the conversation, he asked me whether I knew anything about a comedian called Jimmy Clitheroe. Jimmy Clitheroe was a music hall comedian in the 40s and 50s who played a schoolboy. Morrissey was fascinated by this figure. I gave him tea in my house and then he would give me tea in his house. We never went anywhere or really talked about anything other than Jimmy Clitheroe.
He was born in a different age than his character was preparing him for. And I'm glad God made that particular mistake.
The idea of eccentricity is enormously important to understanding Morrissey. He has some affinities with figures like Francis Bacon. He's fully embraced his destiny as an eccentric. I am what I am, he says, but you aren't allowed to know what I am, and that's a very, very eccentric position.
Here is London, giddy London, is it home of the free
It's funny how this area has completely changed recently, because I used to live down yonder, and we went walking last night and everything's just completely unrecognizable almost.
He could spend the next 30 years in LA, but he's always going to be too English. For the Yanks and for most of the English.
Trumpers.
Morrissey is back in London, visiting his favourite gentleman's barbers in Mayfair.
Fascinating hunting pictures around the wall, you know. There's always a fly in the ointment. I think they're going to give me a trim and possibly just a slap around the face. Facial. Hello.
Nice to meet you, I'm Kieran.
Nice to meet you. Yeah. Wow.
So much for London, home of the crass, outrageous and free. You are depressed, but you're remarkably dressed. That's all you need, but you're just too busy, really busy, busy. Hairdresser on fire, stoned around.
So where do you normally live then?
I normally live in Los Angeles. If you can call it normal living.
Quite lively, is it?
Oh, yeah, but I'm not. I'm going to have to take over.
It's kind of like a maintenance routine with Morrissey.
And watch the magic.
He's undoubtedly very vain and spends an awful lot of time in front of the mirror with a hairdryer and a New York Dolls CD.
Everybody has their own techniques. Shazam.
He probably finds himself the most attractive person that you could possibly meet.
Why meddle with a masterpiece? That's all I can say.
Like him or loathe him, I think his face is really imprinted upon our consciousness because he's incredibly photogenic. I mean, I've taken photographs just of the back of Morrissey's neck and people have still known it's Morrissey.
I just think Morrissey's sexy, full stop, really. I think whether he's on stage performing or just a photograph of him, I mean, you know, whew.
There was just this glorious moment where I think Morrissey was sunbathing, very snoozy, very sleepy. Suddenly these beautiful rays were falling through, I think it was sort of an awning overhead.
Slightly more up over there.
And just managed to get this, these glorious sort of zebra-like op-art stripes. I think Morrissey can play with notions of camp very, very consciously, very, very knowingly. He's very articulate, I think, in what is and what isn't camp.
The homoerotic content of the imagery is absolutely manifest, and to deny it would be extremely foolish.
I don't know what homoerotic is. I mean, I know what erotic is. I don't know what hetero... I've never heard anybody say heteroerotic. So I don't know what homoerotic means.
He may be famous for being outspoken, but when it comes to himself, Morrissey is fiercely private.
Well, I mean, absolutely nothing does he give away about himself, is my experience. Not a jot. I think the only personal detail I managed to get out of Morrissey in probably a couple of hours of conversation was the fact that he liked Coronation Street.
And he's never more ambiguous than on the subject of his sexuality.
One thing you've never answered, and that's about your sexuality.
And I'm not going to.
Morrissey's sexuality was so picked over by the press in the early days that I think he has stopped. I think it's just boring more than anything else.
I don't think it's anybody's business, really. I just don't. I can't see when it becomes anybody's business. And I can't see other people talking about sex and sexuality, really, and what turns them on and turns them off. So I can't think of any reason why I should. It doesn't help me. People can think what they like.
It's almost like more regal not to let anybody know, isn't it, really?
I think he's interested in preserving the mystique that allows him, that kind of ambiguity. And frankly, good luck to him. Why the hell shouldn't he do that?
Why have you never actually put the record straight?
Well, I don't see any crooked record. People think they know, people think they understand, and it doesn't bother me in the least what people think. And there's nothing that people can think of me in that direction that would embarrass me. I don't really care what people think. I really don't. It doesn't affect me. And I'm not hiding anything.
If he could sit in an interview and say, you know, I am XYZ, he would love to do it. He would love to have that answer. He doesn't know. He's genuinely unsure about the whole world of intimacy and sexuality and relationships.
I'm writing this to say, in a gentle way, thank you, but no. I will live life as I will undoubtedly die alone.
For Morrissey, loneliness is a threat, a promise, and a validation of who he is.
It's a chosen aloneness. I think Morrissey is very, very much, so much his own person that it's, you know, takes a lot to find somebody else that, you know, can live harmoniously with that certainty.
Some people can't stand reflection, and they can't stand to be faced with their own company. But that's never remotely bothered me.
Did you ever imagine living with someone?
No, I couldn't really imagine it. I couldn't imagine why it would even take place, really. I just couldn't imagine being with somebody. I don't think human beings are meant to live together. I really don't. I don't think human beings get on in any capacity.
He now finds himself equally isolated in the music industry. Despite plenty of new material, he's yet to agree a new record deal.
You have never been in love until you've seen the stars reflect in the reservoirs.
The music business has changed now, man. It's like it's full of fucking wankers, right? If they can't flog your ass, then they ain't giving you a record deal. If they can't sell you to little kids who don't know shit from clay, they will not fucking take a chance on you.
Hector was the first of the gang with a gun in his hand, and the first to do time, the first of the gang to die. Oh my.
I think it's absolutely obscene that he's without a record deal. I can't believe it. It's disgusting.
All he would have to do is meet one person at the record company that he didn't like, and he just would, that'd be it. He wouldn't consider it.
I find the fact that he hasn't got a record deal at the moment enormously seductive. It makes me want to give him a nice big cuddle, because he's managed to alienate so many people in what, after all, is an uncreative and uninteresting industry.
People see me as pushing against the grain, and it's the ingredients of being the outsider's outsider, and for want of a triter term, I fall into the rebel category, authentically so.
I think he likes a row, and I think he likes to stir it up, and I think he likes friction. That's why I like to see him on the radio next to Britney Spears and Limp Bizkit, because there's a row brewing, just him being there.
His work will last, and I'm quite sure he believes that as well. I have a very strong sense that he knows that as well.
You don't know this person, but you feel like there's a bit of a soulmate wandering around who's actually giving you great pleasure, you know.
The pleasure and the privilege is mine.
He's fucking revered, man. Because his records will be listened to for until George Bush blows the planet up, I would have thought.
I've left my fingerprints somewhere. That's good enough. I'm my own person, and that's good enough. And I stand my ground, that's good enough.
Baby, you understand me now. If sometimes you see that I'm mad.
Next on 4, we're in the elimination stage of a contest which takes in a whole continent. South American football in Copa Libertadores.
When everything goes wrong, you see some bad. But I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood.
Please, don't talk about me when I'm gone.